So, when you think American outlaws, your mind probably jumps to guys like Jesse James, right? Dusty towns, six shooters, the whole Wild West thing. But what if I told you that long before all that, the American Revolution had its own infamous crew? Yeah. Let's talk about America's first outlaws, the Doane Gang.
And get this, that's a quote from George Washington himself. Think about that for a second. The guy leading the entire revolution wasn't talking about some British general or a foreign army. Nope, he was talking about a family of brothers from Bucks County, Pennsylvania. They became so notorious that the commander-in-chief took notice. That's a whole different level of trouble.
And this is where their story gets really wild, full of contradictions. I mean, they were Quakers, raised to be pacifists, believing that all war was wrong. But they became these ruthless outlaws, spies for the king, no less. So what gives? How in the world does a family of pacifists become the most feared loyalist gang in all of America?
Okay, so to really get how these guys went from peace-loving farmers to king-spying outlaws, you gotta understand what was happening in Pennsylvania at the time. It was a total pressure cooker. This wasn't some far-off political debate for them. No, it became deeply, deeply personal. A conflict that literally turned neighbor against neighbor. It really all depends on which side you are on. To the new revolutionary government, the Doans were nothing but horse thieves and traitors. Simple as that. But from the Doans' point of view, they felt they were being persecuted. The new government was hitting them with these crazy taxes just for staying neutral, and when they wouldn't or couldn't pay, their family farm was seized. And that was the last straw. They were pushed from pacifism to straight-up retaliation, and they finally chose a side, the king's. The leader of the gang, this charismatic guy named Moses Doane, he didn't just sit back. He went straight to the British and offered his services, earning the nickname the Eagle Spy. And he was good at it. In August 1776, he gave the British a golden nugget of intel, an unprotected pass. That one tip led directly to a massive, devastating defeat for George Washington's army at the Battle of Long Island. I mean, a truly humiliating blow. But spying? Oh, that was just the warm-up act. The Dallians were about to take their fight against the revolution to a whole new level. They were going to cement their legacy with a heist so audacious it would go down in history. They basically started a reign of terror across Bucks County. They got really good at stealing horses. We're talking hundreds of them from their patriot neighbors, which they'd then sell to the Redcoats. And they went right for the money, staging these incredibly bold and often brutal home invasion robberies of tax collectors. They became the most wanted men in Pennsylvania for sure. Now, this is where the story takes a really fascinating twist. It's October 1781. The war? It's pretty much over. General Cornwallis just surrendered at Yorktown. You'd think that'd be the end of it, right? Not for the Doans. For them, their personal war was just heating up. They had nothing left to lose, and so they planned their masterpiece. So on this dark night, literally just 3 days after the British surrendered, they stormed the Bucks County Treasury in Newtown. They totally overpower the treasurer and just walk out with 1,307 pounds sterling. So what does that even mean in today's money? Well, we're talking over $350,000. Back then, that was almost certainly the biggest robbery of public funds in U.S. history. Just a crippling blow to the local government. And you have to remember, this wasn't flimsy paper money, which was super unreliable back then. No. This was the good stuff, hard currency, all silver. We're talking heavy Spanish dollars, French crowns. In the 18th century, this was real power. This was serious wealth. And here's the kicker. The one little fact that would turn these guys from common criminals into actual legends. The money? It was never recovered. It just vanished. Poof, gone forever. Okay, that treasury heist, that was it, the absolute last straw. The state of Pennsylvania basically declared all-out war on the Dobenian gang. They weren't just a local problem anymore, they were public enemy number one. And their downfall came fast. In July of '83, a proclamation officially named them outlaws, put a big price on their heads. A month later, just 1 month, a posse tracks them to this remote cabin, and a brutal, bloody shootout breaks out. And for the brothers who managed to get away, well, their luck would eventually run out. The law finally caught up to them, and they were hanged in 1788. That shootout at Halsey's cabin, that was really the beginning of the end. The posse had them completely surrounded. In the chaos, Moses Doane, the Eagle Spy himself, was shot and killed. Some people even say he was murdered in cold blood after he tried to surrender. His brothers, Levi and Abraham, they actually escaped the carnage, but now they were fugitives with a death sentence literally hanging over their heads. And what the state did next was pretty extreme. They used this rare and frankly terrifying legal process called outlawry. This meant the remaining Doans were stripped of every single right they had as citizens. Literally anyone could kill them on sight, with zero legal consequences. And get this, the guy who signed that proclamation? None other than Benjamin Franklin. So, in the end, 2 brothers were hanged, the others fled to Canada, and the Doan Gang's reign of terror was officially over. Or was it? Because while the men were gone, their story, well, that was just getting started. See, with the actual outlaws dead or gone, and that huge stash of treasure still missing, the real facts of their lives started to get fuzzy. Rumors, stories, wild, tall tales, they all started bubbling up to fill the void, creating this incredible folklore that's lasted for more than 200 years. And the myths that grew out of this are just amazing. People started telling stories about Moses Doohan making this impossible leap on horseback over a cliff to escape a posse. And the treasure? Ooh, the treasure stories got even crazier. We're talking millions buried all over the county, with the main stash supposedly guarded by a demonic black dog from hell. Yeah, a hellhound. For centuries, that's all they were, just incredible campfire stories. You had treasure hunters combing every inch of Bucks County, following these old sketchy maps and rumors, but nothing. They always came up empty. It really seemed like the stories were destined to stay just that, myths. Until now. Because very recently, something happened. A really stunning discovery in a local cave brought one of these wild legends crashing right back down to reality. So, researchers were exploring one of the exact caves that have been linked to the Dogon legends for ages, and on a stone wall, they found a carving, 1775 M. The thinking is that this was carved by Moses Doohan himself. This is the first real, physical proof that the gang actually used these legendary caves as hideouts. All of a sudden, a piece of the myth became real. So, what does this all mean? Does it prove the legends are true? Is there actually a demon dog guarding a fortune in some lost cave? Well, no. The carving doesn't prove there's a treasure, and it definitely doesn't prove there's a hellhound guarding it. But what it does prove is that at least one part of the legend is real. It shows us that the line between history and myth for America's first outlaws is way, way blurrier than we ever thought. And it leaves us with one heck of a question. If the hideout was real, what else is?